Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Rick David. Matty B's on audio right now. We're going to get him added in a second as soon as he gets settled in. We're going to go ahead and a lot of the mailbag questions that we got were pertaining to the Urban Meyer situation, which we've hit on. There's no new developments, so we really don't have anything for that today. But there was a huge story today coming out of Maryland. About 2 p.m., the Maryland athletic director and their, was it the president of the school, I believe. So their athletic director and the president of the school called a press conference, opening it up to all the press. And what they were trying to do was talk about a situation that happened a few months ago. We hit it whenever it first came out. One of their players had died during conditioning. Last week, I believe, I don't know if it was in time for our show or not, ESPN had broke that they received a preliminary report from the autopsy that's saying that he did not die of like an unexpected cause. He actually died of heat exhaustion or some variation of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, something like that could have been preventable if they had put him into a water submersion tub, sort of like a cold water bath to lower his body temperature. They said whenever he arrived at the hospital, his body was already 106. If you're a parent out there, you know that anything above like 103 temperature for your kid, you're supposed to get to the hospital immediately. So they didn't diagnose it right, and unfortunately, they weren't able to resuscitate him, and he died. Now, that was months ago. So today, it was a very eerie press conference. So I watched it, I listened to it live, and then I went back and watched it. So I had the radio on, and they broke into it, and it was uncomfortable to hear. So I went back after, later this afternoon before the show, and I watched it, and it was even more uncomfortable to watch. President Lowe, I believe, I could be mispronouncing his name, he seemed nervous up there, saying that Maryland was going to take full responsibility for this. But where was that responsibility in May, whenever it happened? 2 months ago, or whenever. It was either in May or June. So where was this responsibility when the event happened? Coming back after ESPN publishes a report is in poor taste in my eyes. Then the athletic director did the same thing. He came out and was saying things like, or along the lines of, yeah, we take full responsibility. They questioned him on his job. A lot of the reporters were pressing hard. He said that he's going to do his best to lead them through this difficult time. They asked about head coach DJ Durkin, who is a Michigan man I know well. He coached our D for 2 years under Harbaugh, 1 year, at least the first year. Then he pieced out right before the Ohio State game. Well, he coached in that game, but he checked out before then and left. So some of the comments coming out of former Michigan players don't sit well with his prospective head coaching job. On the other hand, Will Muschamp, for some reason, he coached with him at Florida with Urban Meyer. He stuck up for him, saying that that's just coach talk and something about they wish it wasn't an anonymous source. So it's basically a complete shit show. But that's a good enough lead-in. So, Rick, what do you know of the situation, and what are your thoughts?
Just from reading a little bit before the show, I did not watch the press conference or anything. The thing is, it always seems like at this time of the year you hear about either a high school kid or a college kid passing away because of heat exhaustion, because of the heat problems and everything along those lines. I mean, there's got to be standards put in place by the college and by the coaching staff, by the athletic directors, by the trainers saying, what happens if it gets to this temperature or that temperature? Do we do morning practices like 7 a.m. and do we do night practices starting at 7 p.m.? I mean, you're at facilities where there's obviously lights, so you can obviously do night practices, especially for colleges, more than the high schools and everything. I mean, it's sad. They're now saying that they feel sad and everything. So I think in one way, I think they're trying to avoid a lawsuit in a way. They're probably going to settle out of court with the family because of this. And it's just sad that something like this happens. And Rich and I were talking before the show, Matt, and I said, here's another black eye for the Big Ten. Big Ten's dealing with, seems like nonstop problems lately, and now here's another one. So, and when's it going to stop? When are these constant problems to Big Ten schools going to stop?
Well, Rick, I'll say, to build off that, I don't really think it's the Big Ten that has the issue. I think it's college athletics as a whole. I think what happens when you're in the Big Ten is it's magnified times 100. Because I'll tell you, where were the people looking into the death of the Notre Dame football player? Notre Dame, or the scout for their football team a few years ago. They had a guy who was like in windy conditions. Brian Kelly wanted him to go up and film, and the tower collapsed, and he died. Where was the outrage over that? Basically the same thing. It's on the head coach. Brian Kelly and the team, they were there when it happened. Like, they knew the conditions were bad. In this scenario, for Maryland, now you're in the Big Ten. Welcome to the Big Boy Conference, where everything's going to be magnified. It's clear that the Big Ten and the SEC make the most money. Surprising that Notre Dame had an incident, considering how many fans they have, and that was kept out. But the ACC kind of stuff doesn't really blow up. We mentioned last week there was a sneaker issue at UNC. Well, UNC then reports to a couple other schools saying, look, it's not only us. They called out Cal, Marquette, and Michigan. And how many people blew right over the UNC story? Every major media outlet. Who are they all talking about today? Michigan. So it's a Big Ten thing. You're higher profile. You make the most money. Just doing the sneaker comparison, they said UNC, whenever they suspended their players for 4 games for football, including their starting quarterback, their shoes were going for $2,000. The Michigan ones that sold were selling for $4,000. So twice as much money for the same Jordan shoes, just different colors, different team. So it's a bigger product. That's why you have the bigger venues, Rick. You have the 100,000 seats in 3 of the big schools in the Big Ten, a couple in the SEC, and that's why you have the most eyeballs there. But I'd like to get your thoughts, Matt. What do you think of the situation?
It's a horrible situation, and as of right now, with the high school season here in Pennsylvania kicking into the camp mode, you have to be mindful of the kids, but at the same time, I think a lot of this, and rightfully so in this case, it falls on the strength and conditioning coach. At least with some of these other levels, you have people who aren't qualified as strength and conditioning, the kinesiology majors. At these colleges, these Division I colleges, they have the highest level support people that are supposed to be doing, state-of-the-art training and things like that, that it should be a no-brainer. I mean, I know in the past we've kind of touched on this. There was a special that Men's Health did on Florida State where the players were wearing trackers, like the special GPS trackers that were like monitoring heart rate and different things like that, their body temperature, so that they could catch some of those things early on. I think that's a smart thing that they have, so that they can monitor in real time, is a player putting out the effort or are they not? What it seems like in this Maryland case is that the strength and conditioning coach was kind of egged on by Durkin to weed out players, to try to run off some of the people, because they were trying to build a culture of toughness. But what they were doing was they were playing some divisive football and kind of nitpicking at some of the people that I think is going to get themselves in trouble. Where I see the line split is with this, it's clearly that they're trying to push and overexert these players, where with the Notre Dame, it was an accident. I see that more of an accident as opposed to purposely trying to push a player past what he's capable of doing. And it seemed like there was extreme negligence with what reports are already out from some of the player interviews that ESPN had talked about previously. That that they were like essentially bullying and hazing players on the Maryland team. If that's true, there needs to just be people cut up and down the line, because it truly is a black eye to the sport. Commenting on Rick's point about practice time, I think to a certain extent, you do take that into consideration. I know at times down south, when I was in North Carolina, you would have to watch, they would say certain times you weren't allowed to practice because of the heat. They've added in the heat acclimation days like what we had last week, where players are limited with the amount of equipment they can wear, the amount of running that is supposed to be done to try to get them ready for that, because a lot of the high school players aren't doing as much in the summer as maybe college athletes are. So they're not as prepared as a college athlete for the heat of camp.
Yeah, I agree with your point on the extreme and the differences between the situations. I just wanted to point out the fact that in the media's eyes, it blows up when it's just different schools, different locations, different things. Look at what happened between the Baylor situation and what happened when it happened to Penn State with their sexual allegations, and even now with Ohio State and their wrestling stuff. It's just a bigger venue, so more people are going to look at it. Now, for your point, Matt, with the extreme workout stuff, we didn't mention it, but the player that died was a lineman, 4-star recruit, comes into Maryland, and they have him running 100-yard sprints. There is no way a lineman should ever be running 100-yard sprints. You don't have to do it. He will never run an 100-yard sprint in a game. There is zero chance of him to need to run ever a 100-yard sprint. To do them in extreme heat is ridiculous. So I look at it as two different ways, because sticking with the Big Ten a few years ago, actually probably a decade now, wow, Iowa Hawkeyes, their strength and conditioning coach was pushing players to extremes, but it wasn't like this. He was doing it more along the lines of reps, and they developed something called like rhabdo or whatever, where their body just wasn't able to break down tissue enough. And to me, if I'm looking at the two situations, honestly, that's more realistic if you're just in the weight room and he's forcing you to do extra reps or squats or whatever. Things that you might actually have to do in a game. If it goes into extra time, you might have to do extra reps or whatever. But running 100-yard sprints when you're a lineman, no one, even wide receivers most likely, are not going to be running 100 yards at a pop. A touchback goes to the 20-yard line, 25 these days? That's 75 right there that you're down to. So ridiculous that would even be their training regimen in the first place. I just don't see the point in that. If you want to see how conditioned he is, have him run distance. That's going to be different speeds, whatever. You're not going to get that extreme heart rate and other things that he suffered. And then if you're going to taunt him on after that, even more of a slap in the face. So the outset of this is after their little press conference, it comes out that they fired Rick Court, who was their strength and conditioning coach. They didn't really fire him. He resigned. And they're giving him a $315,000 buyout. Ridiculous. A kid dies and you're paying a buyout? No wonder Maryland's athletic department is in such a shitty position. They were bleeding money in the ACC. They don't have leadership. I saw it today during the press conference. Go watch it for yourself. Most of the comments during the live stream, I saw it on Twitter, where you can see the comments. I think Big Ten Network also had it on YouTube, where even from Maryland guys, why is he still the president? No leadership. Because that was one of the most pathetic displays I've ever seen by a coach and an AD. I think they need to clean house just from the top. Now, they have an outside investigation coming in to see if Durkin had anything to do with it, if it was really his thing. And I think they said they had a team of 4 people to interview players. The players will tell you right off the bat, if he's pushing them too hard, he's most likely gone. Now, I would like to see the player side where maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was a strength and conditioning coach, and maybe he didn't know. At a program like that, though, I would have to say they're tied together. What do you think, Matt?
Well, being that Florida State was in this transition, one of the things that that I realized is that a lot of times hand in hand with a head coach hire goes the strength and conditioning, because the strength and conditioning program, they're allowed to have more interaction with the players. So they're going to have a better pulse for what's going on with the team. That's why a lot of times, like when Jimbo Fisher left, Vic Valerio job ended up being released and went over to LSU as an assistant strength and conditioning coach. So that's a routine thing for players that when you get a new coach to bring on your own strength and conditioning guy who kind of has a background for some of that. So that doesn't surprise me. And when I saw that players were saying basically the Court and Durkin were hand in hand, were two peas in a pod, it didn't surprise me at all, because he's bringing on the guy that's going to shape the program. So he's telling the strength guy what he wants his program to be, and Court's job was just to build that program. That's what he wanted, and that's what he was getting.
Do you think, I'll play devil's advocate here, do you think Maryland just can't afford a buyout right now, and they're doing something similar to what a lot of people speculate Ohio State's doing, where you're trying to negotiate a buyout with your head coach because you don't want to pay him, or in their case, they can't afford to pay him? So Maryland was in the hole. They were ready to shut down a lot of their programs. They joined the Big Ten, get a bunch of money. What do? They build a new athletic facility. What Under Armour is going to help pay for it. Under Armour stocks go down. They kind of backed out. So right now, Maryland is back into that same hole they were in the ACC. Instead of this leadership getting things right and trying to even the books out, they went ahead, did a stupid maneuver, and now you're looking at a coach too. Maryland has never recruited this well in football as they have under DJ Durkin. They've been getting top 20 classes? I think the last one was like the talent team composite isn't out yet, but they've never recruited this well. So that's another factor too. Do they risk setting them back 20 years?
But I'll say this: I think in the past we've kind of dogged Maryland a little bit, saying about with them being Under Armour and potentially being an equipment malfunction with a lot of their injuries. I almost am now wondering, based off of the reports that are coming out, how much of these like multiple player injuries that Maryland goes through every year is a result of their strength and conditioning coach overly exerting players and putting them in a position where they can't be successful.
Oh yeah, that's we talked about this. If you go back through our podcast, it should be tagged Maryland or Terrapins. It was last October they had just had like 4 or 5 guys go down with ACL injuries, like major injuries that are either usually formed with a bad cut, which could be an equipment malfunction, or because you're tired and you can't support it and you make that bad cut and you're just worn out and your ligament snaps. So we had talked about it on the show. There's obviously something fundamentally wrong, and I agree with you 100%, Matt. It has to be this. Rick, what do you think?
There's a lot of different ways I can go here. I know a little bit about Under Armour just from doing some stuff and research on them. They're huge in the Maryland area. It's actually one of their distribution centers, one of their main factories. So actually, if you look it up too, the Ravens' new training center is actually owned by Under Armour. So
well, Kevin Plank is a Maryland alum. So let's disclose that.
That's the other thing. And he's from that Baltimore area and everything. So that's why they're huge there. Do I think the strength and the conditioning coach plays a huge part? Yes, because you see like every team has them. You see baseball teams have like 2 or 3, and it's even in their minor league systems. And then they have roving guys that go the whole entire way up and down the system. So I think it plays a huge part in knowing where players are, where they're at, and everything along those lines. One player for the Pirates, just to take an example, they caught an irregular heartbeat. He was shut down for the beginning part of last season because the strength and conditioning coach said, we don't trust you going out there and playing right now until we figure out this irregular heartbeat, until we figure out where you're going to be at and how good you're going to be and how durable you can be too. So they had him pitching like side games and stuff like that just to make sure he was okay beforehand. And the strength and conditioning coach does play a huge part in everything. So I think it's a main thing the teams need to have, and they need to have, like Matt was kind of saying, you need to have somebody reliable, somebody you could trust on, because you don't want to see players getting hurt. You don't want to see players getting hurt worse than they could be. And you also want to see players at their most peak physical shape and everything, ready for the main season and everything too. You do have that, your practice season, you have these preseason games and everything to get ready to go play. And you got to watch everybody and see how they're doing and everything. And if a player gets hurt, you got to figure out why he got hurt and how bad he got hurt and everything along those lines, because who says that the guy replacing you isn't going to get hurt the same exact way you did, too. So.
Well, just to wrap this up, because I don't want to spend the whole show on it, I figured since it was such a breaking big story, it deserved to get talked about. Whenever you have a player go down and they ignore it for how many months, and this has been going on for months, their president said the medical report isn't going to be done until the middle of September. So how long does it take for the university to find who's at fault for the strength and conditioning coach? That's another sign to me that this is taking way too long. If Ohio State can wrap up the Urban Meyer thing in 14 days, they say, with an outside investigation, Maryland seems like they're just getting this one started after pressure from ESPN. So it just looks bad all around. I did look it up, the recruiting rankings, just to add a little extra details. Before Durkin was there, they were recruiting in the 40s, 45 and above for the previous two classes. When he came in, his classes were 28 and 18. So he took a perennial 40 beat down, come into the Big Ten, get beat down by 30 to 50 points, and has them recruiting as well as what Penn State has, if he would get 4-year cycle. Because last year, I think Penn State, their average or their talent per team, they took all 24/7 takes every kid on the roster and does the full cycle. I think Penn State was right around 20. If Durkin was to keep doing that, he would be close to that level of competing with the Penn States and the Michigan States in the eastern part of the conference. And they'll never, this is going to set them back no matter what happens. I just don't see a way that their team survives. It's going to be nuked. So you're looking at it from a Big Ten perspective, Rick. What I say is this is going to put out the conversation. For years, we've heard about the SEC where it's win at all costs. Now you have a chance for the Big Ten to just say, you know what? It is win at all costs. We're going to keep Urban Meyer because he's 73 and 8. And we're going to keep DJ Durkin because he's recruiting top 20 classes at Maryland. And no one does that. So we'll find out. The Urban one should be up soon. And there's some additional details coming out. I think Brett McMurphy's holding on to stuff just because he knows that Ohio State isn't digging into this as much as they say they are. And it looks like ESPN's just trying to best him with this DJ Durkin story. So it's quite a duel going on right now in college football. So going to go ahead and segue. We'll get into our high tempo since we put that off. Rick, what do you have for high tempo this week? I know you got a good one.
Yeah, we have a couple good ones. So if you have time, go to YouTube, Butch Hobson, American Association. He does a Lloyd McClendon, so he does do that. So you got to watch a video. Umpires are terrible in that organization. You can see bad calls. He takes out the base and hands it to a 10-year-old in the stands. So kudos to him for giving it away. You also can find when he was with Lancaster Barnstormers, he actually took the base and autographed it, then gave it to a fan. So definitely a good video if you want to watch this. And I'm also going to give a shout out to the A's, one of the hottest teams in baseball. Give them credit. 71 wins, 8-2 in their last games. And let's say this, they're giving Houston a run for their money right now. Houston has 73 wins. A's have 71. 71 with like a no-name roster right now, and they are making a run. So kudos to them. So hopefully they can make a run, and hopefully they'll get into the playoffs here. It looks like they have a very good chance right now.
Matt, what do you got this week?
I really don't have all that much because we're in training camp mode. So I'm kind of a one-track mind. Just got home a moment ago from our second day of two-a-days. Things are going well. We're picking up the playbook and looking forward to getting to our scrimmage on Saturday.
All right, I got a couple college football rapid fire things for my high tempo and some other ones. You guys can chime in if you want. The first one I saw from 2000 to 2018, this year, Auburn has signed 15 five-star recruits. This season, Georgia has the same amount, 15 five-star recruits on their fall roster. So basically, a team that Auburn has won 2 national championships with, Georgia right now has more talent than they have had for almost 2 decades on this year's team. So crazy amount of numbers. Let's see what else. We didn't hit on this, but Florida and LSU has scheduled games. Matt, do you think the Raging Cajun will be the coach of LSU when you guys play them?
Probably not. That program is becoming such a dumpster fire after Lescott can. But it's just, I don't even. It's what happens when you have really good players and just no one good calling any plays. They just go out and just out talent people.
It's similar.
Do you think Les Miles is at home, like laughing right now, saying, "You got rid of me, and this is what you got to replace me"?
Well,
and I'm getting paid still.
Paid.
He's getting paid to sit at home and watch LSU look bad. I mean, he's got to be laughing at home. They became a joke a little bit. I hate to say it, they're a joke right now compared to what they were.
Well, luckily they still paid him, because otherwise he'd be an analyst at Alabama right now. Because they hire every old coach, and you know that would have happened. So let's continue. The other one is where was it? The Florida State, their football program is now going to practice at IMG Academy, and if you remember, that was one of the places that got the Harbaugh summer camp banned, because Harbaugh was coaching there and they had a camp. And he had to have 2 or 3 NCAA reps there to make sure no violations were happening, because that's one of the biggest high school feeder systems in the United States, basically in Florida. So interesting that Florida State would go ahead and do that. Obviously, Willie Taggart's learned a few things from Harbaugh in his days, pushing the boundaries. So that's good for the Noles, Matt, because you know that some of the stuff he's done has paid off, and that's going to be a big one.
Well, the big thing that helped at IMG was that Chris Winkie was the head football coach. Nothing like your national champion winning quarterback just funneling players right to Tallahassee. Now he's, I believe, quarterbacks coach up at Tennessee. So as he stepped down, we kind of lost a little bit of that pipeline. I had mixed feelings about it, to be honest with you. I mean, I said I thought it was, I wasn't on board with it when Michigan was there. I'd be lying if I said that I was okay with Florida State doing it. I think if you have it, it is in your home state, it is close by, but do it at your own school, do it at your site. You're complaining and you want all these stadium renovations and special projects and upgrades and facilities. Use the facilities that you're begging for. I don't know.
I'll be honest, I was a little nervous when Michigan did it. The only thing that made me feel a little bit better was, like I said, Harbaugh had reps from the NCAA that kind of walked out and talked to the crowd before the players came out. And is Florida State going to do the same thing? I would hope so, because you would hate to see a team go through this only to get hit by NCAA recruiting violations, which you know then in turn will hurt their in-state recruiting if they have a hotbed school that they're then told to stay away from a few years. You lose that pipeline, you pretty much lose it until the next coaching staff comes in. So definitely something that have to be careful with. I think it makes more sense if you're an out-of-state school, and I agree with you. Florida State, they're already in the state. Try to do it somewhere else. Maybe that's what the NCAA rule is. It's in-state, so they're allowed. I don't remember what all kind of Harbaugh rules they put in after that season, but there's something like that. Speaking of...
Real quick, though,
go ahead.
To finish that off, I also look at it from the perspective that when you start traveling away from your home university and your home site, how much extra expense is now being afforded for housing, for food, for whatever other things that you need along the way? And it goes back to that point of what special things are these student athletes getting that maybe your average student isn't getting, that is then now tied monetarily to the university and extra costs of paying for a special group of people. I think that's where it starts to get into some of that tricky water where, with Michigan and their football team going on some of those different trips and having boosters paying for stuff. I think it's a slippery slope that you start heading toward.
Yeah, and continuing on with the next topic with the Michigan stuff, when you're getting all these extra things thrown your way, then you have the shoe investigation, which UNC, when they got pinched, I think they had so many players suspended to start the season, including their starting quarterback. And then, of course, ESPN does the article with this line. Michigan, with 32 pairs, had the most shoes on the reselling exchange and also had the highest price of $4,671. So they're kind of tempering down that UNC that they sold and they were actually athletes. So, of course, then Harbaugh, you kind of have to be by the book. And he comes out today and says, we had a guy come through, count all the shoes, and they're all accounted for. So now with this, past players, how was this not paying the players? Because any school now, you're a player, you can be like, look, you're going to get these Jordans now. If you come to Michigan, that you can resell when you're done playing for almost $5,000. It's like the same exact thing. Just let the kids sell their likeness. We've talked about it all the time. It's so frustrating. Because let them sell their jerseys with their numbers on it. How many schools still sell? Auburn, you're telling me they don't sell a Bo Jackson jersey? You can't tell me they don't sell a Bo Jackson jersey or 800 other Bo Jackson things, because I know they do. I mean, he does like a biking thing across Alabama for them. So it's ridiculous. This is going to be opening the can of worms. UNC set the precedent by suspending all their guys 4 games, which in football terms is a big chunk. Now, if it comes around, basketball players they have done it. What is that, like 8, 10 games, 12 games? How many games do they play a season? So it sets a bad precedent, I think. And it's not only going to be the 4 schools that they named: UNC, Michigan, Marquette, and who was the other one? Cal. It's not only going to be them. And you're just opening up a whole new thing. Just pay the players already, or let this not even be a thing, because it's not only going to be a couple schools. I think I have 2 more things for college football before we move on. The 5-star recruit linebacker for Washington, Al Kayo, I probably butchered that last name, commits to Washington, goes to enroll, denied enrollment. So what happens this fall? He winds up at where? Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Roll Tide, 5-star. No problem getting him in there. Right, Nick Saban? Nick Saban said, well, some schools, they just look at some classes that disqualify him, but we'll let him in. We'll give a kid a shot, if he's a 5-star guy. What do you guys think of that?
Not surprised. I mean, come on. Don't worry, he'll go to the draft in 3 years, and if he makes it, he makes it. If not, he'll end up back at Alabama. Then he could be running on that scout squad of NFL busts or whatever they were doing. I mean, come on. It's a joke. I mean, I'm not surprised it happened. It's Nick Saban building an all-star team.
Well, he has to compete. Georgia has those 15 5-star guys.
That's true.
You got to be kidding me if Georgia has more 5-stars than Alabama. Something's going on there in the recruiting world, because Nick Saban has been ruling recruiting for how long? So is there going to be a change of tides down there? Because that's what we're looking at. The last thing, SEC considered, Ole Miss has rolled out a new mascot, a shark, for their team, the Rebels, a land shark, mind you. So it's an actual mascot with the head, and I'll send out this picture. But to me, has to be one of the dumbest mascots I've ever seen. It goes back to some of the different variations of like the Philly Fanatic. Like, what the hell is that thing? We're awful mascot. Then you have this land shark. Doesn't make any sense. One player comes up with the name land shark, and they're going to roll it out as an official mascot. Ridiculous. But that's our college football wrap up. The thing I thought Rick was going to bring in, Cleveland Browns, as we segue into the Steel City update, Cleveland Browns are giving out free beer, Rick.
Yeah.
Free beer.
Yeah. the free beer story. I love the free beer story. So if Cleveland would beat, their first win at home, they're going to give them free beer. There's a combination lock that somebody from Bud Light knows. So if they would win the game, so they have these Bud Light courtesy coolers around town, I guess, and at the stadium, they're going to unlock them so people can get free Bud Light to toast that Cleveland finally wins. I mean, kudos to Bud Light for doing this. They're getting tons of publicity for doing it. They're going to put them up. They're going to put them at the stadium. I mean, it's worth it. The city, I feel bad. I said this before months ago. I feel bad for the fans of Cleveland because they actually give a crap and they show up. And anybody who's ever been near that freaking stadium in Cleveland knows it's nonstop wind and it's cold wind all year round. You just freeze to death. And I mean, for those fans to show up and watch a loss after loss after loss, let's give them something if they win. I mean, heck, last year you guys made fun of me for the parade that they had no wins, which they donated tons of money to different charities. But I mean, let's give something. Let's toast to the winners if they win, I don't know how many games they're going to win, but they got Cincinnati for 2. So maybe they can pull them a win against Cincinnati at home. I mean, that would be nice.
Well, hold on, Rick, because that's counter argument to what you told us in March whenever you went up there for a Cleveland Indians game.
It's cold wind all year round.
You were loving
it.
You were in love with the city.
Oh, I love the city. I think it's a nice city. You talked about
it with the glowing smile on the whole time.
I mean, the city's nice. I mean, they have a great area where you can go pregame if you want to go get a bite to eat or have a spirit with your friends or whatever, or with Mrs. Rick. But I mean, the city is nice. I like the city. I like its feel and everything, but it's cold. It's cold if you're going there for a football game or an April Cleveland Indians game.
Well, continuing with the Browns team, considering they're our week 1 matchup here in Pittsburgh, they are approaching Des Bryant. That's the rumor. They're going to meet with him on Thursday. So we speculated about it, and it's going to happen. And just to continue, I mentioned it. One of the former players that spoke out against DJ Durkin was Jabril Peppers, who's with the Cleveland Browns right now. He said that that's definitely Durkin's style, to be aggressive and bully you down. And he said it pretty convincingly. So there's another interview, if you're looking for more details, look up what Jabril Peppers said, because, I mean, if the guy's been doing this for years, it doesn't look well for him to go on. So getting into the Steel City update, Rick, you want to kick it off with the Pirates? Did you see the opposite side of the Rays deal?
Yeah, Shane Baz gone. That would have been a first-round draft pick. So in that trade, now to complete the Chris Archer deal, we trade away a first-round pick in Shane Baz. We trade away a first-round pick in Austin Meadows and a second-round pick in Tyler Glasnow. I was talking with some of my friends out of the Altoona area, and they were complaining that, Shane Baz was a first-round pick. He could have been a middle-of-the-rotation pitcher and everything. But the problem is he's still got to develop. He's in low A right now. So he's got to make high A to double A to triple A up. I mean, we've seen pitchers do great in single A, like Tyler Glasnow, and flame out. They were not good. And I mean, here's the thing. I made this comment, and none of them had a good answer to it. Name a Tampa Bay Rays pitcher, even the Devil Rays pitcher, that went on to do great things. You could say Chris Archer, but he was in double A Cubs when he was traded, so he was already a double A pitcher. I mean, they don't have a track record of developing pitchers, so this could be a good trade. And he had a 4 ERA in single A. If you have a 4 ERA in single A, you're going to get lit up in double A. I mean, those hitters are going to hit you nonstop. So, I mean, I think I'm okay with it. Do I think this guy was ever going to be a top of the rotation pitcher? No. Because if you have a 4 ERA there, you're not going to make it. So, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, we still have a player to be named later in the other deal that went to Texas to get Kalafalu or whatever his name was. So we got to get him. So we still have a player to be named later. So maybe a fielder in that trade to go.
I didn't like it. Too many guys. For Chris Archer, who's could be on the tail end of his career, and we only have for what? 2 or 3 more years?
We would have him for 3 years. here's the thing. You got to be thinking about from the Pirates standpoint of what does the Pirates think about money. Again, I said it before the season started. The TV contract for Pittsburgh's up at the end of the year. So they're thinking about how can we get people to watch these guys because we got the Steelers on Thursday night. How can we get people to turn on the TVs in July, August, September? So Chris Archer could have been your guy. Now, they're still back in the wild card. Do I think they're going to get the wild card? No. There are too many other better teams in front of them. I mean, Matt Carpenter went insane. He kind of started hitting crazy when that Pirate series came up, and I think he had 3 home runs by the end of that series. Rockies are doing good. Diamondbacks doing good. Cubs lost today. Brewers are still in front of them, and the Braves are playing heck of great ball. Acuna has 5 home runs in 5 games. So too many better teams are in front of you. And you have to play the Cubs and the Brewers and the Braves are still coming up here. There's too many good teams still left on the schedule.
It seems like just a couple weeks ago we were saying how easy their schedule is looking, and then they go 5-5 in the last 10, and it's just going to be. Well, we know it's going to happen. They're always going to collapse. So, anything for the Penguins? I don't really have any updates on them. It's been pretty quiet.
Kind of quiet on that side right now. So
time to get ready for the Steelers versus Eagles, which we knew. Actually, you knuckleheads, you guys lied to me. You said that they got rid of Foles. He just wasn't playing because he's hurt. Or whatever. They kept him out. They kept out him and Wentz. So they both have both quarterbacks. It's not going to work out. They're not going to get a repeat. And, what was it? Pro Football Focus or someone said the Eagles had the number 1 roster in the NFL. How come they got their ass smacked then on Thursday night? Because isn't the point of preseason to show up how much depth you have? You're letting Josh Dobbs just throw touchdowns all over your D? Embarrassing, Eagles. So, go ahead, Matt.
Putting preseason into perspective, the Browns were 4-0 last year in preseason. So, take that for what it may be.
Yeah, but they had young depth. We talked about it. You got to have young depth. The Eagles, the whole thing for the NFL, they've been talking about how much young depth the Eagles have. Now, granted, both quarterbacks didn't play, and that might be where they overestimate their talent, because you know how everyone overestimates the quarterback value in the NFL. And you have 2 good ones. One's a Super Bowl winner. One was kind of hyped up as, a rookie? Was he a pure rookie? Actually, I don't even know if I trust your guys' assessment on the Philadelphia Eagles roster.
I don't even remember you bringing up about Foles.
Yeah, I asked if he's still there, and I think it was Rick. I'm going to call you out, Rick. Give me bad intel.
He's not on the roster right now. He's injured still.
Oh, my gosh. Well, he can still play.
He can't. I think he's on the... Is he on the IR yet or not yet? No, he's on the PUP list. I think he's on the PUP list, if I'm not mistaken. He's not on the IR. You can't place anybody on the IR yet. They have to be on the PUP list first. So, yeah.
So, I don't know. What did you guys think of that game? What stood out to you?
Just the offense continued to be able to move the ball in the post-Todd Haley era.
That's a big thing, too, because that's what everyone's saying is going to swing the Browns this year. Having Haley come in, he's familiar with the AFC North and familiar with the Steelers. How's that going to look in week 1? And there were a lot of questions. A Ben Roethlisberger-less team. What are the other quarterbacks going to look like in a new system? And I would say that they looked pretty good. Because it's one thing if Ben comes out there and he's able to produce. But for backup quarterbacks to come out there and show out, I think he looked good. Juju, he's already on another level. I think that could be the best tandem receivers in the league, now depending on how these other wide receiver moves shake out. But if you have Antonio Brown and Juju as your starting receivers, that's a good core right there. So getting Bell back in a few weeks, and well, obviously Brown has to be healthy. He was held out last week. So I feel pretty good after week 1. Any negatives you guys saw?
One of the things
Samuels didn't play good at all. I was expecting better from him. But give Ferguson two Toussaint kudos because I forgot he was totally still on the roster.
Well, Rick, how can you forget
the
Michigan
forgotten
man on the
running
team?
back. What?
How can you forget Michigan man and butcher his name?
Well, probably because he only averaged like 1.6 yards a carry. Pretty easy.
Hey, he was a Brady Hook guy. Someone had to carry our offense back in the day. Toussaint, Rick. Toussaint.
Sorry to all those people that own Ferguson Toussaint jerseys out there.
Well, the thing was with Samuels, we said about it last week. When you have so many positions at NC State in the college level, hopefully you're thinking that he's just an athlete that needs to get on the field. And I'm pretty sure we talked about it. The big thing is going to be speed. Does he have the speed? Because if they were trying him out at tight end and all these other positions, maybe he just doesn't have it to be a contributor. I mean, look, does James Conner have it anymore? Or did he have? Would he have ever had it? If he didn't get cancer, I don't know. He didn't look like he had it so far in his looks in the NFL career. Hopefully Samuel's able to get that because that's something that Willie Parker had. That's why he was able to contribute in a Steelers offense. When you have speed and you're built around some type of physical play, you're going to be able to get your looks. So, but maybe it's only the first game. We'll see how that shakes out. But Matt, what were you going to say?
Well, there was it wasn't on the field, but one of the media guys was saying about Brown not practicing after like limping off the field or something, and he was like, he replied to it and just kind of called him out after Jalen Ramsey went after a report. I just thought it's just more childish behavior from AB. I just wish he would just focus on his play and just not get wrapped up in all the, for lack of better wording, the high school drama of everything. Just see like there's always trying to create some issue or some rift that like takes away from just focusing on football.
Yeah, I think that's a culture problem, though. And I don't know if that's going to be saved anytime unless you would bring in, at this point, you would almost have to bring in a whole new coaching staff, I think, for that to change.
Right.
So, and that's something at the top. If they're used to it, maybe, but at this point, do you want to make that sweeping change? Or, as it looks right now, the Steelers aren't going to go ahead and do that. So, we do have some comments. I'm trying to get, it's very hard for people on the live video, for me to get both up without breaking the feed. But Brett, you're going nuts, dude. I'm loving it. And we definitely have to get you on the show. I told Rick to reach out, and Rick gave me some shit today. What were you saying, Rick? Get him on the show.
I don't have his phone number.
Are you?
I have a new phone. So Brett, you know my Facebook. Just send me your phone number. Send me your phone number, buddy.
I think what you said earlier was you're afraid he would outsmart you, and he would already be able to counter all your points, Rick.
No, he went to Pitt. I'm good.
Ooh.
Brett knows that's a joke because he knows I'm a Penn State homer. Brett's a Pitt homer, so it's a Penn State Pitt bias. So it's a joke. Trust me. For all those people out in Skype world that are watching us, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke that Brett and I have been going on. And when Pitt plays Penn State, I'll be bragging about how great Penn State is. He'll be bragging about how Pitt is. And we'll see who wins. We may bet a lunch or something on it, Brett. If you want to do that, we can do that.
Rick with another bet on the show. And for those listening at home, we do the show live on our Facebook, Southbound Sports. You can follow us there. We try to get it up every week at 9. Been having some problems with Skype, so it's been tending a little bit late, but I have some ideas to try to get that fixed by the time football starts or through the first couple weeks of football season. So check us out there. Make sure you like our page, and you should get that popping up in your feed. Speaking of Pitt, my next NFL topic, did you guys see the ridiculous Larry Fitzgerald graphic that NFL Network put out? The dude has never had more than 5 drops in a season. So they compiled his career, and this includes postseason. So this isn't like he's had multiple drops. Look at who's the guy for the Packers, Devontae Adams. I swear that dude has 5 drops a game. Larry Fitzgerald doesn't have 5 drops for the entire season. His high was in 2006 with 5. After that, he's had 1 season with 4, 2010. Every other season has been less than that. He's had 2 complete seasons, 2007 and 2014. I don't know if he played all those games, with 0 drops. As a receiver, especially Larry, because he is targeted a ton in games, running slants, which are hard as hell as a receiver to catch because of the linebacker issues there. The linebacker's floating out, you're going to take a hit from the safety, and that seems to be where he makes a lot of his catches. Think of, was that the play that he caught in the Steelers in the Super Bowl? It was like a slant. I think that was him. So that's basically his MO. Catch it up the seams. He can definitely catch the jump balls, which is another one that could get characterized as a drop. Puts his hands on it and falls. I mean, that was his play at Pitt. Just unbelievable. Because we discussed Larry Fitzgerald versus Julio. Was that a year or 2 ago? That was whenever Jeff was on the show. He brought it in. And he should be starting up his show. He told me this weekend I was out with him. So you'll be checking that out. It's going to be part of the Southbound Sports feed this year as we try to combine all our stuff. So you'll get a bonus episode as he does his football breakdowns for the week. So look forward to that too. But that was one of our things, Larry Fitzgerald. And with this graphic, he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. First ballot Hall of Fame. I know he didn't win a Super Bowl. I would love to see him. If the Steelers can't win a Super Bowl, wherever Larry is, I wish he would win one. I think he deserves it. And that's where I'll leave it. But that's my last thing that I had for the NFL this week. Do you guys have anything else? I guess I should have moved our topic counter. Anything for the NFL preseason?
Bill Belichick's already in probably postseason mode for his interviews. I love watching his stuff. Right at halftime, New England was playing the Redskins, and the reporter's like trying to get him to comment on anything. He's just like, "Well, we really played a crappy half. We hope we play better in the second half." Like, well, what about the touchdown? Like the touchdown run or touchdown pass? He goes, "Okay, so we played good for 38 seconds in the first half." And he channeled so much hatred towards the media. It's just crazy.
I did see that, and I know a lot of people get mad at the coach speak, but would you rather have someone not say anything at all or someone up there just lying through their teeth? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't chastise a coach for he's always lying or he's always exaggerating, because you've seen it. Oh, we played awesome today, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the opposite side where you're kind of just like, yeah, we're just going through our motions. Sort of the coach speak. I actually think because Harbaugh, I watched the Big Ten. We talked about it, the Big Ten Media Days, but one of the running backs from Michigan, he came out and he even said, they asked him about the quarterbacks, and he did in the middle of his speech, he said, yeah, they both know they're working hard, blah, 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 blah. Like he knew that was a script, and he was practiced with that. Like, hey, you guys are going at the interview. This is what you're going to do. If you remember, was it Marshawn Lynch who came out and just sat there and didn't say anything? Like, yeah, I know I have to do this or I'm going to get my salary cut. So I'll just sit here. Go for it. There's no reason in today with social media that we need to have all these mandatory press outings. You just don't need to do it. It's an old thing. Yeah, whenever there was newspapers and there was 8 newspapers. Have you guys seen any of the media day stuff, even from college or like this preseason stuff? It's 30 dudes trying to cram as close as they can, holding their cell phones up. And they're all live streaming it. Same with the Maryland press conference when I watched it. You could see like the one stream on Periscope. You could just see 30 other guys holding up their phones. Why even have that? Just all watch the Big Ten one with the professional camera, and then just write your article on that. Why are you there holding up your cell phone? So, all for Bill Belichick. I love his interviews. And I did lie. I had some other stuff. How do you pronounce that running back's name from LSU, Matt? Juice tore his ACL? Guys. There were 3 guys, and of course I probably didn't write them all down. Who was the other one that tore his ACL? There were 3 ACL tears. I think Geis was the biggest one for the Redskins because they've been looking for a consistent running attack for a while now. But it's just a downside of preseason football. I don't know if there's anything that's going to help with that other than the NFL doing something as extreme as having all the players wear those knee braces, but I don't even know if that would help either. The other one was Deion Kane, and the last one was a tight end. And of course, I didn't write his name down. But unfortunately, you hate to see that down for the year. That's all I have for NFL talk before we get into...
Hey, one more topic. Big Ben. He's in concussion protocol now. After Tuesday's practice, he got placed in concussion protocol after taking a hit. So don't look forward to seeing him on Thursday. You might as well just put a line through his name, strike a line, and get ready for Landry and Dobbs and get ready for Mason Rudolph.
I'm surprised Roethlisberger would even play in any preseason game. If your number one running back and your number one receiver aren't playing, why are you out there? You're supposed to be building the consistency with your team. Just hanging out on the sideline with half the other guys. Just do it then. What's the difference?
And why even watch to a certain extent? Because some of the guys you're going to see, like Mason Rudolph, probably not going to be playing much this year. Being honest.
Oh, he won't be playing.
As long as Big Ben's okay, he's going to play every snap.
No, you saw it. Landry Jones was the first quarterback on Thursday, I believe.
They went Landry Jones to Dobbs to Rudolph.
Yeah, I tailgate a little hard for that first game. Football's finally back. But, yeah, Landry Jones first one. So he's the preferred backup still. I hated seeing it, but, there's nothing we can do now. He'll probably be there until the contract's up for Dobbs or Rudolph, because they'll be one after another. I don't know what years they signed for, but they're going to have to decide at that point. So, unfortunately, we're probably going to have him for a couple more years. And, he actually didn't look too bad, if I'm being honest. I was kind of hard on him the past couple of years, but
that was exactly the way I looked at it. I wanted to be hard. I wanted to find things to be critical, but he did what we want a backup quarterback to do. He managed the game. He did. The highs weren't high, the lows weren't low. He managed the offense and didn't screw it up.
I think most other fans want to love their backup quarterback and put him in on this show. We hate the backup quarterback and hope he fails. It's like the opposite extreme. I think all the Ravens fans are like, yeah, we want to see Lamar Jackson or we want to see RG3. We're like, no, get rid of Landry Jones. Why'd you do decent in that preseason game? So, anything else, Rick?
No, that was the only thing I just saw because it popped up on my feed here while we're doing the show. It popped up here, so that's the only thing I see.
All right, let's go ahead through the final bell here. Get the final round going. I have the first one. I'll kick it off because I had this one. This is actually going to be my opener until we had all the Maryland stuff come flying in. And if you want to hit us up for the mailbag, you can send an email to contact@southboundsports.com. That's where we get most of the stuff. So I always forget to read the stuff for the audio only people. But if you're watching the live stream, you can also comment on the videos. We have some come through like that, but we usually try to pick one out to hit. And my high tempo for this week was gonna be one of the Wake Forest assistant basketball coaches was in New York, I believe, and he went to, in the middle of the night, some drunk guy was punching his car. So he goes out to the guy, and this is all paraphrased. I'll look and see. I'll send the story out. It was in the New York Post. So he hears a guy knocking on his car. He goes out there, confronts him like, hey, idiot, like, quit hitting on all these cars, because it wasn't only his car that he was punching. Well, the guy, being a drunk, comes up, punches him in the face, I believe, is what the New York Times story said, or New York Post. So the basketball coach then swings back, probably with a crushing blow, as the guy falls, hits his head on the ground, and some complications formed from that combo. And when they took him to the hospital, he died. So now they're investigating criminal charges here. I don't know if you guys even heard of it. I saw it because it happened down here in North Carolina. Obviously, Wake Forest, part of the ACC. Their basketball is their calling card with players like Chris Paul and Tim Duncan in their history. That they have a coach go down for something like this. which, to be honest, I think is a bit extreme. And at this point and this age, you don't know. I think he could potentially claim self-defense. If another guy comes up and punches you first, he's drunk. You don't know if he has a gun, a weapon. Hitting him back, you don't know you're going to kill him. So very sticky situation that I wanted to bring that in. And you don't know, Matt, because a lot of people, what they'll say here is, oh, he was an athlete. He should have known better. How are you supposed to know? Maybe this guy did mixed martial arts. You don't know. I'm a big firmer in the old self-defense, stand your ground. So a lot of bullying stuff. Go ahead.
I'm a big advocate with that. How about I see someone punching my car, call police. Let the authorities handle it.
Mm-hmm.
True. That would be the beta way out, Matt. Call the police.
Well, other way,
walk back in the place, call them.
You know,
actually, what would happen in today's day and age? You wouldn't even call the police. Most people would have their phone out, filming the incident. So this coach came out as a pure alpha male. None of that BS. Confronts the guy, puts his life in danger, and then takes care of business.
What's wrong with you?
Well, I did see that the people that guy was at the party with, I think they said that he was out looking for a ride, and he was punching. He thought that was his taxi. So the thing is, if he's at a family event, where is that guy's family? Why do you let a guy that belligerently drunk, geez, as I'm making light of the topic, why do you let him out without anyone watching him? It just doesn't make any sense. So I could see both sides of it, both sides to blame. It's a weird situation because you don't know in today's world. Most likely the guy should have just filmed the event. I know I said it in a joking manner, but if you're caught in a situation, especially if you're an athlete, a coach, I know we have some younger high school athletes or whatever trying to get into college with a scholarship. Anything like this would completely put that at risk. So the safest bet is always to just record it on your phone. And then you have it. Then you have it as long as you're acting correct, doing the right thing. And Matt's right. If it is a bad situation, you're better off just to leave. If you have the video evidence of the guy hitting your car, call the cops. Then you have proof. You can say it, whatever, get the insurance to pay for the dents or whatever happens. So just to put that out there. Let's go around and see what you guys got. What do you got, Matt? Anything else?
I got nothing. I got nothing after that.
Rick, what about you?
I mean, if you want to watch some good baseball, Ace, I'm going to throw out Braves are doing good. Akora, I said, has those 5 home runs in 5 days. I mean, this is the time of the year where you're going to see teams make playoff runs, and teams that are out of it, like the Angels, they're going to start calling up some of their prospects. Just call it up Taylor Ward, when they're probably their top prospect right now. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting time in the major leagues here. The Denver Broncos did something stupid. They decided to give all the rookies ridiculous haircuts. What they should be worried more about is playing better defense, because that's what made them lose last year. So maybe they should spend some extra time in the film room. Maybe hire a professional barber. Oh, wait, I didn't realize you guys didn't make the Super Bowl. Oh, wait, you don't have Peyton Manning as a quarterback anymore. Don't worry, he ain't coming out of retirement. So you're probably going to lose either to the Steelers, the Ravens, or the Patriots. So good luck to you. Good luck to you, Broncos. No one cares. And happy birthday to Josh Bell, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the first baseman. It's his birthday today. So happy birthday to him.
Rick, you can't throw out all these funny stories without letting me interject. Because that Bronco team, you cannot tell me Peyton Manning won them that Super Bowl. Dude, with that noodle arm that year, that was one of the worst winning quarterback performances I've ever seen in a Super Bowl.
But he was a game manager. We were just talking about. He didn't lose them the games. He kept them in it because their defense was so good. It's the same exact theory. Why did Joe Flacco win a Super Bowl? Why did Trent Dilfer win a Super Bowl? Because they had great defenses, and all they had to do was not blow the darn thing.
You don't think Joe Flacco's elite?
Okay, that was. Anybody remember the ESPN game day? Is Joe Flacco an elite quarterback? Most hilarious sign next to the one asking about Wade Boggs drinking all the beers on a plane flight. So funny. Those two are my favorites on ESPN game day. So, but no, I don't think that the Broncos won because of their defense. And Paxton Lynch, I guess, is crying up a storm because he's now demoted to a third string quarterback. There's another guy. Didn't realize he was still on the roster. Dude, you were a first-round draft pick quarterback, and you're a third stringer now. You should just be calling up Tim Couch and asking for life advice. You should be asking Danny Warfel, what do I do with my life? Because Danny Warfel will tell you to go into religion because his career didn't last long. So Paxton Lynch, I would start putting your resume out there, seeing what's available. I mean, there's some other job opportunities out there in life. Because if you're third string for Denver, you're pretty bad. I mean, you're bad.
That could be extreme. I don't know.
They brought back Trevor Siemian last year, who stunk and still played over him when he wasn't even hurt.
Yeah, but
that was bad.
Rick, didn't you hear John Elway is the greatest GM in the league?
Yeah, I know. I hear that every time he speaks. You want to talk about people who deserve the Hall of Fame, like Larry Fitzgerald, Dan Marino. Then you get John Elway, who just brags himself up every time. I don't know how you could be in the same room with him because he's probably taking all the hot air in and taking it in to feed his ego. I mean, geez, if you were that good, you would be in it every year. Like Belichick can claim he's great NFL, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Yeah, because you're in it every year. Elway, you're not in it every year. And if you are, you need to start yourself and give this shot because you're definitely better than Paxton Lynch right now.
Hey,
true story. Or he should go coach up Paxton Lynch. Be like, this is what I did. I won 2 Super Bowls. Let's see what you can do. Maybe you can win 2 games this NFL career.
Hey, Elway has put together 2 of the greatest losing efforts in the Super Bowl, both as a player and as a GM, I believe. Wasn't he GM whenever the Seahawks kicked their ass? And then the 49ers stomped him with Joe Montana. It's like 55-10. So I'll use that as our closing note. God can win some, Rick, but you can also lose some. Just get there, baby.
They got there once in like the past 12 years as he's been GM. Jeez.
Twice. He won one, he lost one.
Oh, that's true. I keep forgetting he lost one. That's right. Because he didn't have Peyton Manning. That's right.
Yeah, he did. And I forget. That first one was a beatdown, though. But
yes.
That's the end of the show. Thanks for listening. You can follow us, Southbound Sports, on Facebook and Instagram. Catch a live show there. Tuesday nights, sometime at 9. We're working on it. And then S-Bound Sports on Twitter. Make sure you can leave comments. If you want to get in the mailbag, you can tweet at us, Facebook us, or send an email like people have been doing to contact@southboundsports.com. And we will see you next week.